Hi there and welcome back to Pierpoint. Okay, so a few hours have gone by since we put this reel seat on, so I just wanted to come back and check to make sure it's all good. Now, one way of checking that your epoxy resin has actually set is just looking at the excess that's come onto this piece of cardboard. You can see that it's started to harden. It's not quite there, but it's as good as. So 3 hours later it's starting to go off quite nicely. So while I was in the workshop, I just wanted to show you how I then prepare this piece of shrink tube for the lower half of the butt section. So I'm just going to get rid of the epoxy resin stuff, and now I'm going to use a slightly different cutting board for my shrink tube. So what we've got this section of the butt, so the lower section. So what you need to do is measure the length of shrink tube that you actually need. Okay, so we're going to do that, and that's going to be in the region of, it's about 28 inches, and you need to allow, I'm going to allow half an inch because it can shrink on the length as well. So we want a piece of shrink tube that's 28.5 inches. So what you do, use your China graph pencil, so make a mark. There's my 28.5 inch mark, which is just about there, so hopefully you can see that on the camera. Okay, just hold it up. So there's my 28.5 inches. Now what I do is I use a lined cutting board, because you want to try and make sure that you get as straight as cut as you possibly can. And that's the tricky bit. So if you use something that's got these lines on it, okay, line your shrink tube up like that. Okay, it's about as straight as you're going to get it. Shrink tube by definition is just not straight. Okay, so what I do then is I take a straight edge and I line the straight lines up across the shrink tube with a ruler. Be careful, sharp knife, danger, and then just make a cut across there, and that's about as straight as you can possibly get it. Okay, now the cut is straight, but as you know, once you apply heat to the shrink tube, it doesn't dry on straight. So take that straight edge, and then we're going to slide that onto the butt section, and we're going to offer that up to the reel seat as close as we can get it. Okay, and then we're going to shrink that on to the butt section. Okay, so we'll slide that on as best we can. Now what I like to do here is that the shrink tube normally has a flat edge to it on the sides, and you can see there might be a slight crease on that, so make sure that that crease goes on either side of the rod. Okay, so we're just offering that up as best we can get it, and that's nice and tight. Okay, it's about as close as we're going to get it to the reel seat. Okay, that's in there. Okay, so that's fine. And then what we're going to do by hook or by crook, we're now going to shrink that on. So I've got a hot air gun, so this is a Titan one, and it's on number two setting, so we just need to warm that up a little bit. Okay, sorry about the noise. Okay, and then just make sure that that is in there nice and tight, and it may shrink back, so you might have to adjust it whilst you're heating it. So we'll apply a little bit of heat to that. Just be careful because you're working around the reel seat now, you don't want to be melting that. Now once you've got the first bit done, just a little tip there, just make sure that you just squeeze that in if you can, just push it up, and then just make sure that you've got a nice seal there, and because we got a nice straight cut, that's actually gone in there quite nicely. Okay, now once that's in there and you're happy with that, then you can go and shrink the rest of the shrink tube. Okay, so it's a nice hot setting, so that will shrink down to at least half its diameter. Okay, that's going down quite nicely. Hopefully you can see that on camera. It does get hot. Okay, extremely hot. I should probably end up getting some posts, because people don't like sharp knives, they don't like flammable liquid, they don't like heat guns. I'm beginning to wonder what they do like. I'm sure I'll get a few messages that, oh, that's a bit dangerous. I normally do. But we live in a workshop environment here. Okay, we're all professional tradespeople. It's all risk assessed. We know exactly what we're doing. Okay, yes, we're applying heat to the rod blank, and yes, we know that heat can damage the fibres of the rod. Some people may prefer to use steam from a kettle or hot water. That's entirely up to you. I like to use my heat gun. I've been doing this for a number of years now, and it works absolutely fine for me. Okay, there we go. So that's going on quite nicely. So there comes a point where we're going to have to drop that down. So let's just make a little bit of space, just so that you can see. Okay, so that's nice and hot, nice and secure there. Okay, and then we just keep rotating that around. I do like to use my rod turning stands for this, because it does help. Okay. I'm just going to adjust the rod stand at this end, just so that it rotates around nicely. Doesn't matter if you stop and start. Okay, so don't forget we went over by about ½ inch, because sometimes it shrinks. This particular butt section has actually got a butt plug in the blank. Okay, so I don't want to be taking that out, because that's obviously adding a bit of strength to the end bit. So as you can see, that's shrunk down quite nicely. Okay, so I'm okay with that. I say it gets extremely hot. That's hot to touch. I'll just swing that around so that you can see it on the other side. Okay, so there you go. That's shrunk down quite nicely. Like I say, there's a butt plug in there, so I don't want to be taking that out, because it adds a little bit of strength. So there you go. So there's a nice piece of shrink tube. There's the reel seat in the middle. So we've got a nice seal around there. It's a nice tight fit, both sides. And then we've got the reel seat, the locking nut, which is locking down from the top, so that's absolutely fine. And then of course we've got my finished piece there, which I need to put some high build finish on. So there you go. That is how you apply a reel seat to your butt section. I've shown you how to do the shrink tube and how to cut it properly using a straight edge, and also using the particular cutting board there that's got some grids marked up. So you line your shrink tube up with one of those lines, and then you cut down this one, you know, with your sharp knife and your straight edge. So there you go. So thanks for watching, and if you want to continue to pick up some hints, tips, tools and techniques, don't forget to follow us on my YouTube channel.